I'm Allison Heinen, and this is my final synthesis paper. At the very beginning of the semester, I was getting my elementary education degree just because I needed a bachelor's degree, and I thought it was going to help me a lot for my future as like an occupational therapist, and that's what I was like dead set on being. I told people at the very beginning class, and I was kind of nervous. Like, this is like my first semester of having just like mostly education classes, and I was worried like people wouldn't be very happy that I was like wanting to be an education major, but I wasn't actually going to be a teacher. I've always known I loved school, and I was always the kid that like couldn't wait to go to school every day, and like I was always participated in everything I could, and so like, but I still never really saw myself as a teacher, even though like I figured I would kind of like it. Um, I that's just kind of like my outlooks when I came into the class. And as for the class itself, I definitely thought it was pretty intimidating because it wasn't very structured, and especially when you said like our grades were going to depend on everybody being there, and I've never had a class where people actually show up every single class. I've never had a class where we don't get to know our grades. I've never had a class where like we aren't really sure like what the teacher's expectations are, because there's no like specific rubrics or anything. So that part was intimidating because I'm so used to being kind of like a people pleaser, you could say. Like, I'm used to like going by the rules and making sure I have everything exactly like how the teacher is wanting it to be. I'm also like but other than that, other than like the things that I was worried about, I also felt extremely welcome when I walked into the classroom, and I loved how you made sure we started to get to know each other's names, and you made sure you got to know our names. And I think that's really important because I've never had a class in college where I actually like felt like I was important in the class, and like the teacher actually knew who I was necessarily, or was going to remember who I was next semester if I ran into them. And so that part made me really excited, besides all the things that I was really scared about. My opinions definitely changed like throughout the semester and everything once I got to know like how everything was going to work, and I got used to it, and I stopped worrying about my grades and everything. The very first thing that I always think of when I think of the class is my facilitation, and I was facilitation 4. My group and I worked really, really well together. The book I was assigned to was great because like I've never really been confident in my abilities to like handle like a full classroom, and I wasn't sure how to do that because I hate being the mean person, but I also know that like you have to have boundaries or else it's not gonna like have a good classroom environment. And so the book taught me a lot about like how I would be able to like be real and like be myself and still have a lot of fun in the classroom, and yet still let like have it to where the students want to learn and like want to participate. That was pretty cool. But I was super nervous about like actually teaching my class about that with my group, and just because like I've never been really into public speaking and things like that, because I get too shy in front of people, and I kind of tend to talk really, really fast, and I learned that I move my hands way too much when I talk when I'm nervous. The video taught me a lot because like I walked away thinking, oh, I did really, really well, and like I still feel like I did well after watching the video, but I definitely realized that there is a lot more I would never have known I needed to change if I didn't watch the video. So that's pretty cool, and like I like your idea of videotaping myself randomly like in the future, so I always like know like what I should improve on and like what I could fix or what I should keep the same and different things like that. I like how doing the facilitation and teaching my peers is like really got me out of my comfort zone, and it got me feeling more confident about things that I can do and like where I can grow and like what parts of me like I need to work on in order to be a better teacher. I also sorry, the air turned on. Gosh, what was the next thing I wanted to talk about? Oh, the individual teachings. I was really happy with my very first one because I started out right away with an activity, and I remember you saying that it's really, really important to get students engaged, and so I thought I did great in all this stuff. And then as we got going with the semester, I was like, ooh, how did I think I did so good on that first one? And then like the second one came around and I was feeling a little bit better. And by the time the third one came around, I was pretty confident that I knew I did better than the first one, but I started to realize just how hard it is sometimes to like be super creative and like make sure your students are moving around and they aren't just sitting there staring at you while you're talking, and getting them to want to talk about the subject that you're trying to teach. And like, but it also showed me like just how important that is. And so like I'm really happy we did the individual teachings, even though that was like extremely nerve-wracking for me to do at first, but I definitely think I benefited from that. And it was great to hear like the feedback from the students that I taught and everything. So I mean, I really liked that. The next thing that I really liked learning about was when the facilitation talked about gamification. I used to always think it was like just constant technology and like they're trying to push like all technology in classrooms, and I'm like not really 100% like sold on that. And so when I learned like gamification can be just like making up games in the classroom and doing board games and different ways to learn without having to like just be on the computers the whole time and everything, I thought was pretty cool. And then like the next thing that really stood out was when you talked about like this, like helping our students like find their desire to learn, because like you can't have a classroom where the kids don't want to learn. Like it won't go anywhere. They won't set their own goals. They won't try. They won't be creative. And so like it's up to the teacher to like create that desire for the students to learn. And I've never really thought about it that way. I just kind of, I mean, it never even crossed my mind, I guess, until this class. One of the ways that like I really took away to get like my future students to have that desire to learn is by like making sure they're engaged the whole time with things that they like to do, by like hands-on activities, kinesthetic learning, and like group activities. And like those are things that all like worked for me in my past, and so like I know I want to make sure I bring that into like my future classroom so my students can all like find those things that really make them excited and make them want to come to school and learn more and like ask more questions and like share information that they maybe found out on their own about the subject. And I think that's really cool. And the next thing like that has to do with like their desire to learn is like how interactive the teacher is with the students, because like when we would dance in class and things like that and just funny things, like if the teacher was just standing there boring, like I would be embarrassed to dance, but like if the teacher's up there dancing all crazy and having fun, then I would do the same thing. And I think that goes for like the things you learn. Like if you're doing math, like not everybody thinks math is super fun, but if the teacher can find ways to like make it fun and like the teacher can get excited about it, it's more likely the students are going to get excited and want to find ways to like make it relevant and more fun for them. The next thing is when you talk, like it was towards the end of the semester and you talked about the teacher being a part of the community, and I really liked how you made a good point that like as a teacher, like you're a role model inside and outside of the classroom. And so like you don't want your students to see you like doing something crazy at a bar one night, or your students' parents to see you doing that, because that doesn't set the example that most parents want their kids to have in a classroom, and it doesn't show the side that you want your kids to see in the classroom. And like good ways to do that is just by like always holding yourself accountable and like always making sure you're acting the way like you would hope your students would act one day. And then the next way you said like being a part of the community would be like playing active roles in the community, whether it's like coaching jobs or going to plays and concerts and supporting your students' fundraisers, or just going to games, or anything that you know is going on in your students' lives or in the community in general. Like to not be afraid to like do those things, because it shows the students that you're like a real person and you're not just constantly just playing the teacher role in the classroom, and the students will feel like they can relate to you more. And I think that's extremely important, because when I look back at my elementary and high school teachers, the ones that I would get the closest to were either my coaches or they were teachers that you would see at different events all the time, because they could relate to the students. And it was always a good feeling when I'd come to class and a teacher would be like, hey, you did great at this volleyball game, like I saw you out there, or you did really good like at your FCCLA event or something like that. Like I always think that's really cool, because it like shows that the teachers actually care about other things than just science all the time or something like that. I don't know. Sorry, I'm talking kind of fast. The next thing is like and those are all just like a couple of the things that I took away from the class. There's obviously so much more. I would say the absolute number one thing that I will always remember is that how important it is to be flexible and work to like each student's individual need, and to make each student feel special by making sure you know their names and making sure you're like creating a good learning community in your classroom. And like I loved when we talked about not you don't have to be fair for your students. Like each student has a different need, like whether it's some students are going to need extra help on math, or some students who are acting out may not need the same kind of reinforcement as another student because maybe they have something else going on in their life that needs a different kind of like care for or something like that. And I think that's really cool because you're always taught like you have to be fair and you have to do things equal for everybody, but like that's not necessarily the case because it's not fair to treat everyone fair, if that makes sense. But that's something I'll take away and I'll always remember. And I think one thing, like, as I'm going through, like, my education classes that I always have in mind is I had a teacher in high school who really stood out to me and, like, is kind of, like, the one I always think back to when I'm, like, thinking of things I can do. He was the one who, like, made sure, like, by the time I graduated, I was a lot more confident in myself because I was, like, the girl I literally didn't talk in any of my classes freshman year. Like I was so shy, and by my senior year, like I was playing a lot more active roles, and I like won some awards at the school, and like I was his aide in the classroom, and like he would make me yell the word confident every time before I left the weights room because he was the strength and conditioning coach and the powerlifting coach and teacher and everything. And he like focused not just on like things in the classroom, but he focused on things outside the classroom. And he was able to look at me and pick out that I was shy, but like he saw potential in me that I didn't see in myself, and he was able to push me to that point. And that's the kind of teacher I want to be one day. And a quote that he said one time was, if I can make a difference in one student's life today, then I'm doing my job. And to me, that's saying that like he's not just there to like teach what he's supposed to teach. He's there to like touch people's lives, and he wants us to know that he's here to help us, and he's here whenever we need someone to talk to. Like there's so many times that I went to him for things that I would never go to any other teacher for, just because I knew like he would take the time to get to know who I am. And I saw that in your classroom, and I saw that in you too. And I think that's like the most important thing like any teacher can have the ability to do, and because it makes such a difference in like the student's life. And like my transformation in high school is just tremendous, and like my transformation at the beginning of this semester to the end, I feel like the way I look at teaching, the way I think about teaching, the way I felt in the class, like, was a huge difference for me. And so, like, it's hard to pick out, like, one specific thing that I'm going to take away from the class because there's so much more. And, like, I'm really sad the class is over, actually. The next thing, I guess that's kind of the stuff where I want to be in the future. I also want to make sure that I'm always being creative, and I'm always like trying to step out of my comfort zone and trying to like push the boundaries and stuff to like see where I can take things and like how far I can really make them go. I don't want to be that teacher that just settles for like what has to be done and like what the standards say. Like I want to make it so the students have the best experience and want to continue to learn, because that's what's so important. And like I want them to all walk out of my classroom to be more confident and to feel like they have accomplished something and that they can continue to accomplish things. And I want them to feel like they're a part of like a family while they're there and when they leave. I would say the main things that like the main ways I've changed since the beginning of the class is that I was like I would say like 90% sure I wanted to be an occupational therapist, and like that I loved teaching, but I didn't actually want to be a teacher. And now I'm like the complete opposite. I'm like 95% sure I want to be a teacher, and like just a little bit of me still thinks about OT, but I honestly like I kind of forget about it sometimes because I get so excited about teaching all the time that like OT kind of slips my mind, which is just really strange because I never thought about it that way. I will admit though, like the hardest part for me is that I knew that as an occupational therapist, that's what I wanted to do. Like, I really was like, I'm gonna be an occupational therapist, and it's super hard to change my mindset, but like your class like gave me a different view of like what teaching is, and like made me even more excited than I already was about it. And so I'm like I would say even 99% sure that I'm going down the route to be a teacher now, and I'm really excited, and I owe like all of it to your class. Like, it makes me really excited to see that something I've always loved as a kid, like I'm starting to find that love in like a different way now, and I'm really excited to like see where that takes me. And now like, and the other thing is like I used to like really be hard on myself because people would always say, oh, like you're just teaching now because it's the easy way out and things like that, and I like am starting to like not let that stuff bother me, because you've like instilled this confidence in me that like teaching is so much more than that, because the way you talk about it in class and like the passion that you show in class, like I want to have that, and it makes me so excited to see like where I can take this. I don't get as frustrated when people like diss on teaching or anything, because I know like deep down inside like that how important teachers can be and like the differences they can make, and it makes me really excited. And I owe a lot of that to your class, and I want to tell you thank you. I'm really hoping I get you in my Block B, because I would love to have your class again, and I wish there was one in every single block. But I mean, yeah, I definitely, the biggest change for me is that I didn't really want to be a teacher. Now I'm pretty sure I really do, and I get really excited talking about it, if you can't tell. But yeah, I'm super excited to see where the rest of it takes me, and I'm really excited to take the things I've learned in your class and take things to the next level, and to like continue to grow and help other people the way teachers have helped me in the past, and I'm just really excited for that.